why should somebody take their time to learn Hebrew, study Hebrew, ponder the Hebrew? It's, it's not just another language, but the whole idea that a bunch of people could say, hey, there's something there, really? And look and go, phooey, another dead end, another dry well.
I think there's still that Jewish connotation there underlying, that you become a Jew when you learn Hebrew.
Well, the Jews are the only ones on record for having any regard of this language, so that's not necessarily a bad thing,
But to say that you become a Jew because you start keeping the commandments is like saying I become a chicken when I walk into a chicken coop.
Right.
It has no connections, none whatsoever.
Yeah, no.
Well, other than what's on your shoe, what gets stuck to your shoe.
Yeah, on the farm. Yeah.
Well, I don't know what we're teaching on today.
We're going to start with Deuteronomy 10. And someone had asked a question if I could elaborate on, they said at 26 minutes, I think it was the third Psalm 119 video, they said at 26 minutes I mentioned something, and I looked at it, and it was that I had said that all over Scripture, Yahuwah said that he was going to recover his people and bring them back to the land. And they said, could you say where that was? So it's like, well, okay, so based on what Deuteronomy 10 is talking about, I figured I'd go into that other subject because we have mentioned it numerous times, and for whatever reason, if people see the connection, then we could just elaborate on that. Understanding that, as you requested, Kurt, this week we have to limit it to exactly the 2-hour mark, the 2-hour limit.
Whatever we don't get in for this week, we can carry over to next week. No.
Sure, but just in terms of the idea, but anyway, so there was, in order to talk about Deuteronomy 10, we have to go into Deuteronomy 9 a little bit also.
Okay, so if we're going to start the teaching, I will open up in prayer unless somebody else wants to. Anybody? Any takers? Okay. And then when I'm done praying, Aaron will start the teaching, and then everybody shuts off their cameras and their microphones. Just tap it once, but that's after we're done praying. So, okay. Father, thank you. Thank you for people from all over the world joining us. I'm just blown away, Father. You blow me away over and over. Just something small, something simple, teaching your word in your language with your letters, Father, and then just all these different people. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for choosing us to be here now, to be alive in this day, in this time, with these folks. I can't ask for anything more. Thank you, Lord. Thank you. Amen.
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 Amen, amen, and amen.
All right, so I'm going to turn off the cameras and the microphones and we'll let Eric go. Just remember, just push it once, both of them, and we'll be good to go. For some reason, Paul, you have your hand raised. Did you have a question?
Yeah, how do I put it down? How
Push
do
it
I
again.
put the hand down?
Push the raise. Just push it again, just once.
Okay.
So just so you all know, feel free to engage if you have a question. And if you wanted to say something, I'm not intending on necessarily going on a monologue here. So, but if I don't see your hand raised, Kurt, please bring it to my attention. Otherwise, I'll proceed. But you're welcome to engage the interaction. So, we're going to talk about Deuteronomy 10. Okay, so we'll just start looking at what's called Parashah Ikev. The word Ikev in Stone's Tanakh is spelled E-I-K-E-V. But if you look at the if you look at the way it's spelled, it's Ayin Kuf Bet. Well, Yod Ayin Kuf Bet is the word Jacob. So I'm just trying to show you that here they pronounce it Ikev, pronounced or spelled Ayin Kuf Bet, but that's the same as the word Jacob. So when we think it's minus the letter J or the letter Yod, Yachov, why? This is where you get into problems with pronunciation. Ayin Kuf Bet, I could even say is Okab or Akaba. Aqaba, isn't there a Gulf of Aqaba in the Persian Gulf area? It's basically the same root word, but it means that which follows behind, to circumvent, overreach, supersede. And remember that Yachov, this word is basically with the Yod prefix, it means he will. So the word that we just called Jacob literally is a prophecy that means there is a reward, there is a future, there is the promise of a benefit for whatever we used the word last week, endure, whatever we endure, whatever we sustain, that Yahuwah himself promised a future to his people. And that promise of the reward, it's kind of like if you go to work and somebody says, I'll pay you at the end of the day or at the end of the week, end of the month, and at the end of the year, you get some sort of bonus. That promise of a future is the word Ayin Kuf Bet. I've been promised a future before and denied it for whatever reason. Somebody said, look, we have a contract, but now, oops, we can't continue the contract. I worked for one guy for 2-3 months, and he says, look, I'll cover you, just get the thing done. And I got the job finished for him. And then he said, oh, there's nothing I can do. Yahuwah is not like that. When he says something, he does it. And so the beginning of this, which is actually Deuteronomy 7, verse 12, it says, Vayahaya, that's Hey Yod Hey. So any word that's spelled with a combination of the letters Yod, Heys, or Vavs literally has to do with existence. So Aleph, Hey, Yod, Hey, that has an Aleph, which is first person present tense. So that's translated I am, the existing one, the one who declares himself to be. Ehyeh, Aleph, Hey, Yod, Hey, which is translated I am or I will be. And then Yahuwah, Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey, what's called the Tetragrammaton, the 4-letter sacred name, whether it's pronounced Yahuwah or Iyahuwah or something like that, however you want to pronounce it, it has to do with being that it starts with a Yod, which is essentially third person, he will cause and sustain, be the responsible party for existence. But here you have Hey Yod Hey, Vahaya, and it's translated, this shall be. So here they have that future. In Genesis 1, describing the first day of creation, it says Yod Hey Yod, Yehi. Yehi or means exist light. So I'm just trying to give you a sense of reading that it almost doesn't matter what the letter order is. If you have words that have Heys, Vavs, and Yods, maybe an Aleph, maybe a Tav, it has to do with existence. And then the word Akov, Ayin Kuf Bet, well, you'll see in the dictionary, it's the footprints behind somebody. It's the wake of a ship in the water. It's the idea that something is following. So if you're out in the desert and you're famished and thirsty and you've got some hyenas following you, or coyotes or whatever might be dwelling out there, vultures overhead mapping your trek through the desert sand, it's like they're just waiting. They're waiting until you quit wiggling, and then they'll come in for dinner. It's the same idea as Ayin Kuf Bet. And so this letter Ayin is an eyeball. The Kuf is this to rise up and circle around. as it were. It's our letter Q, the circle with the straight line, kind of like this menorah shape. It's these circling ripples with a vertical. So even that's a menorah shape, which I say represents the stomach, you can also see the kuf shape in there. And that's the certain, it's almost like this billowing, circling is like smoke of the pillar of smoke. And then this verticality is the pillar of fire. So I suggest that the letter kuf is a graphic representation of the pillar of fire, pillar of smoke, question mark and exclamation point, otherwise known as an interrobang. Interro as in question and bang as in wham, definite exclamation point. I've actually used that symbol as my business logo for 30 years now, known as everything imaginable. It's the name of the business. So the idea is that you could say, wait a minute, does that include? Yes, it does. Hey, can you? Yes, we can do that too. And I say that because it's not about me, it's about Yahuwah. All things are possible. All things are possible with him who causes it to exist, certainly. What does that include? Well, then you have the word tav, shin, mem, ayin, vav, nun, te shemaun. Shemaon. Well, the vav nun at the end basically is one who is in the action of doing, and then the tav prefix or suffix acts as a future or past sort of reference. It's basically as we or when you shema, when you are the one engaged in shemaing, what? Then there's what they call a standalone aleph tav. Et. That one word never translated is right here. The fourth word, just like the fourth word of Genesis 1:1, is aleph tav. And then there's the word ha-mishfatim. Well, mishfat is right rulings or judgments. Ha-Allah, hey, aleph lamed hey. Well, again, aleph lamed is the word for translated God or deified. So you have a hey, aleph lamed, and then a hey. And remember, just like with the word bush, hey, somic noon, hey, hasna. And I was saying the first hey, which is generally translated the, it's like this imparted incoming into the root word, which is aleph lamed here, which then expresses. So it's simply translated the word these. But I could say the godly, the deified, the deific. That's where the Islamic or the Arabic word Allah comes from, is aleph lamed hey, which is actually Hebrew, and it means pertaining to. And if we don't use the word God, if we don't use the word deity, how do we describe? If we say, well, it's just Elohim, it's El. Yeah, but if somebody doesn't know what El means, then what does it mean? So you have to use synonymous words as a reference, and once people know what you're referring to, then we can jump back into the Hebrew, just so people understand what I'm doing. In English, God comes from the German Gott or Gad or good, and a lot of people refuse to even mention that word because it's the name of a Canaanite deity or a Viking deity or wherever other culture. Well, so's Lord and Master and Rabbi and Teacher and Professor and Doctor. Those are all titles that theoretically Yeshua said don't use. But again, the only pure language that we can reference is Hebrew. So a moment ago there, Judith, we were saying, well, where's the value in speaking Hebrew? One place is to know what these words mean. And the other place is to say, when he said, don't let the names of these other deities even come out of your mouth. Some people are really sticklers, which is a good thing, I think, to a certain degree of usefulness, not to mention the names of the days of the week or the names of the months. So to say ha-Allah, is it saying the God, the deity, or is it just the word these? But the word aleph lamed hey also means curse. So the fact that Hebrew can mean a number of different things when you put it into English translation, it locks your mind into an exact iteration, utterance, and thus meaning. But similar to the menorah pattern, you've got this specific down the middle, but then you've got these ripples. And the interesting thing about this pattern is I believe it's virtually telling us how the translation works. There was a definite utterance, like this one line down the middle, iteration. But then there's these ripples of meaning, ripples of effect, ripples like concentric circles of what else it means and where else your mind can go as a response to what he said, because what he said could be taken different ways. Just so you know what this verse says, this is Deuteronomy 7, verse 12. This shall be the reward when you hearken to these ordinances and you observe and perform them. Yahuwah your Elohim will safeguard for you the covenant and the kindness that he swore to your forefathers. Then verse 13, he will love you, bless you, and multiply you, and he will bless the fruit of your womb and the fruit of your land, your grain, your wine, your oil, the offspring of your cattle, the flocks of your sheep and goats on the land he swore to your forefathers to give you. You will be the most blessed of all the peoples. There will be no infertile male or infertile female among you or among your animals. Yahuwah will remove from you every illness and all the bad maladies of Egypt that you knew. He will not put them on you, but he will put them upon all your foes. You will devour all the people that Yahuwah your Elohim will deliver to you. Your eye shall not pity them. You shall not worship their gods, their deities, their idols, for it is a snare for you. Go on to verse 17. Perhaps you will say in your heart, these nations are more numerous than I. How will it be that I will be able to drive them out? Verse 18. Al-Tira, do not fear them. So as we've said before, Al-Tira, in this case it's Lo-Tira, is the most often repeated commandment in the entire Bible. Do not fear them. You shall remember what Yahweh your Elohim did to Pharaoh and to all of Egypt. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. The whole idea of this parashah, especially the word parashah is where we get the word parse or parsnip or Persian. It means to cut something into pieces, like cutting into chapters or cutting into weekly readings, just so if people don't know that. Someone might have called this the chapter regarding Jacob, only because this was before there was necessarily chapter and verses. Parashahs are sectional. So I could read this, that the existing, the true existence is that there is a reward following for those who have an ear to listen and believe and implement. Remember, the word Shema is not just hear or listen, but it's regard what you're hearing, process it in your mind, take it to heart, or that's the Mishkan pattern. Come to the fence, choose life, hear the instructions, take it to heart, and then, like the picture of the menorah, do what he said. Be the menorah. Be the tree bearing the fruit of his ruach, which will then have an eye for those among you who are less, you might call them circumstantially fortunate at the moment, and provide for them with, that's the letter Pei lining up with the altar of incense. Then I'm just going through the Mishkan pattern steps here, which is prayer, which is food, which is help, which is friendship, fellowship, with the hope set before us, the Ark of the Covenant. That hope set before us is that tangible lifeline. We'll bump into that in a little bit, some more, but I just went through the pieces of the Mishkan pattern here. The big white fence, choose life. Step inside, there's the barbecue grill. Learn the instructions. That's the words of his Torah. Then the laver, take it to heart from within you and nurture the sprouting of his word. You know, Yeshua said that the word of Yahuwah is the seed of his various parables. And then in the covered place, you got the menorah, table of showbread, altar of incense. You've got, like the picture of the menorah, be the branches that bear the fruit, and then the fruit is inspected, or the measure you use is measured to you. That's the picture of the iron balancing scales, the teeter-totter, all these different motifs, the table of showbread. And then you've got the pay, the mouth, which is the altar of incense. So Samik, Ayin, Pei, these three work together as a continuing, ongoing process. Do justly, love mercy, walk humbly with your Elohim, which is this Micah 6:8. So anyway, going on with that, the idea here then, it says Aleph Tav, the Mishpatim. Well, if we take the word Mishpatim and say, well, those are just right rulings, or those are things that he just said to do, which is a matter of justice. It's like, no, wait a minute. Remember, the word shofet is balancing of scales. Right rulings, yes, but because the scales of balance are even, you put a kana, kuf nun hey, and it'll stabilize like a teeter-totter, which is in equilibrium, or the balancing of scales with two weights, and they offset each other, and everything is perfectly balanced. When you have a contract deal between two parties, when both are satisfied, neither one of them thinks they're getting ripped off or have leverage over or under the other guy, then you've got shofet. Mishpat then is the judge, or the one who, or the time, or the occasion when everything's on the up and up. Everybody's perfectly happy. So Aleph Tav is something about when everything is proper and right between Israel and Yahuwah. Both of them have satisfied the covenant of Aleph Tav. And then the curses. But see, Aleph Lamed Hey is not just curse. You'll find that in the dictionary, but also means the deific. The deific. Well, remember, he said that if we walk in his ways, we will be as he is. We will be these powerful entities. We just read about, you'll be the most incredible, blessed of all peoples on the face of the earth. So why is it that people hates the Jews? Because the Jews think they're better than everybody else. Well, what do you think this just said? He told them to consider and have the hope and have the vision that they are better, certainly more blessed, certainly enjoying his favor, and that he, Yahuwah, will remove from the 12 tribes of Israel every illness and every bad malady, not because you have more pharmaceuticals, but because Yahuwah is Rafeno. He's our Elohim who heals us. Yeah, but what if he doesn't heal us? There's a couple different things we can do in reading this text. One is read what the words are. That's the barbecue grill, the altar of sacrifice, you might say. Then when it's taking it to heart, it's like, that's all the yabbits. Yeah, but what about the guy, my friend who died of cancer? What about the guy that just had this horrible thing on him that's just disturbing his life? And it's like, all the yabbits. There's a distinction. What did he say? Now, how do we take it to heart? And then the reality is, yeah, but stuff happens. We have to keep a distinction between what did he say? Okay, that's what he said. Period. Okay, now we have to take it to heart. Yeah, but no, not yet. Take it to heart. Take to heart what he said. Okay. Now do what he said. Yeah, but no, not yet. Do what he said. Implement the instructions, like the menorah. Yeah, but okay, now once you bear the fruit of doing and implementing and believing and taking to heart because you've held on to choosing life, now you look at the fruit and oops, guess what? One of them has a big ugly spot on it. What do you do with that? Well, first thing you do is pray. There's the pay, there's the mouth, there's the altar of incense. And you pray for one another. You lift up the concerns of this one, and then you got to find a Levite to say, what do we do? Find a priest, find a Cohen, there's where the difficulty of life comes. But that's, you might say, the hope set before us then, the Zadi, the Ark of the Covenant, is imagining the healing, picturing the resolution in a positive aspect. So the problem, you might say, is between ayin and pei, between the table of showbread and the altar of incense. That's where we can address the real problem. But because we first set up this whole other mechanical system. So when it says the mishpatim ha'alah, we have to realize that the entire world is set up to be like the balanced scales of right ruling and justice. When we betray the covenant, everything goes the other way. But there's a recovery. There's a promised reward, especially to Yachov. Not just Yachov, but the entire universe is built according to the mishpat of Yahuwah. But Yachov was specifically told, when you listen and believe it and implement it, to do it with the sustained hope, Aleph Tav happens. It has to happen. It can't not happen. Because it's of Elohim. And the power, you might say, the influence, thus, you might say, already imbued as mishpatim, is for, or when, then there's this word shamar tam, when they shamar, watch, keep guard, and do, ayin shin yod tav mem, but the word ayin shin hey does not just do, as if, yeah, I'm doing it. No, but the word ayin shin hey means to have a causative force, which is to say, provoke, incite, agitate. It's a catalyst. It's a positive command. Aleph Tav Mem, which is translated just as the word them, when you do them. And Shamar, Yahuwah Eloheka, which is watch, keep, and guard, or keep your mind focused. You know, like they say when you're playing baseball as a kid, it's like, I can't seem to hit the dang ball. It's like, keep your eye on the ball. Watch that when the pitcher throws you that ball. Don't be looking around or don't look at the bat. Keep your eye on the ball. Keep your eye on the ball. So Shamar is basically keep your eye on Yahuwah Eloheka. And again, Eloheka, the kaf suffix, means your Elohi, your Aleph Lamed Hey Yod, Elhi. And you, as you were told, Laka, et ha berit. Aleph Tav is pointing to the action of the verb unto the Brit. So he's saying, keep your eye, that Yahweh your Elohim told you, gave you the Brit, the covenant, and Aleph Tav ha chesed. The chesed, asher, that means who, that which, Nun, Shin Bet Ayin. Well, Shin Bet Ayin is the number 7. It means to swear a vow or to fulfill a vow, to be satisfied, to be replete, full, surfeited, abundantly overflowing, which is where you get then that the meaning of the number 7, Shavah, is not just the number 7, but it means to swear a vow. It's the curse you get for breaking the vow. It's the concept that the vow is fully satisfied, but so fully, it's a picture of, and here we hear this phrase elsewhere, pressed down, shaken together, and overflowing. That's the measure that Yahuwah uses. But the picture of pressed down, shaken together, and overflowing, even though those are 3 conditions, they describe what it means to be 7, Shavah, satisfied so fully because it's accomplished as was mishpated, the balancing of scales, and to the abundance of pressed down, shaken together, and overflowing. And then the last word, Lamed Aleph Bet Tav Yod Ka. Well, that's to the abbots. Abbatika, your abbot. Well, that would be translated father. There's a place up in Canada near Vancouver called Abbotsford. Abbot. The abbot is the father. The Catholic priests were called abbots. But the word Aleph Bet, as we discussed a bit last week, is not just the word father. Aleph Bet is the word that also means verdure, or an attitude of youthfulness, vigor, springtime. I just happened to bump into the word in the dictionary. It was Nun Vav Bet. Well, what's that got to do with Aleph Bet? The only commonality is there's a bet. But Nun is the prefix to engage in this action of like turning on the light switch so that the power flows so the light will come on. And it says it means, amongst other things, to speak. Well, then that means if you put Aleph as the prefix instead of the bet, making it first person present tense, it means I speak, or this is my vocal projection. Well, you won't find that in the dictionary as the description of what is the definition of Aleph Bet, but there's, just by analyzing the spelling of a completely different word, you can see that, as we've said, that the fathers, our Father in heaven, Abenu Shabashamayim, prefixes, letters, in the heavens. Shabashamayim, Shin is a prefix, and then Bet is a prefix, and then Shamayim is you could say, again, Shin is another prefix, and then Mayim would be waters. But anyway, what I'm saying is that for him to project at the first order of business, this word is found in the two letters Aleph and Bet, Ab. It doesn't just mean father. It can also mean to have a passionate desire, and it means to speak, if you look at the format of Nun Vav Bet. Okay, so here what I'm saying is that because there's a kaf suffix, it means you. So what I'm saying is that this could even be read as not just that he swore to your forefathers, but as you fulfill the vow as spoken to your forefathers, or when you speak according to being fulfilling the whole vow. And then the word asher, and now I'm reading the sentence backwards. La abatika nun shin berai nashava asher ha chesed va'et. So I'm just reading the sentence backwards, trying to show you that it'll work the same way. When you speak with a passion of verdure, fulfilling the vow, the word asher means, not only does it mean the word who or that or which, but it also is the same derivative of yashar, like in Israel, which means authentic, to validate, to corroborate, to walk straight. There's a straight line of connection between you speaking with a heart of pure truth and passion because of the covenant. There's a straight connection with the chesed, that's the tender loving kindness of Aleph Tav, because it's according to the Brit, Ha-Brit, Aleph Tav Lecha, your Eloheka Yahuwah, Vashomer, he guards it. This isn't a question of, yeah, but how do we know if this thing still works? He's sustaining it to exist. For you, for them, Aleph Tav Mem, and doing va ashitam veshamartam ha'ala. Again, I'm just reading the sentence backwards. Hamishvatim et tashamaon akov vahaya. And the reason I'm reading the sentence backwards is because I'm trying to show you that even in the various King James translations, where they shuffle the sentence around, take the beginning part of the sentence and stick at the end, or put this over here and replace nouns and verbs in different orders. If the truth of the sentence is what it is, because it also follows the message that's embedded within the alphabet in its natural 22-letter sequence order, it almost doesn't matter how you shift the letters around. Unless you're trying to prove that this is wrong, so you're going to do some monkey business where you say, hey, I'm going to change it all and prove it to be perverse. And yeah, there, you're lying. It's like, listen, if you want to lie to yourself, go ahead and believe your own lies. But the fact of the matter is, the way Hebrew is written, like beads on a chain. We mentioned last week about a pearl necklace, as it were. And to have a 52 pearl necklace, like those are the 52 Shabbats in the year, or you could choose to smash one. Why would you do that? You choose to profane one of the Shabbats. Why would you intentionally distort the meaning of one of these words? We're not trying to do any funny business or monkey business. What we're trying to do is understand what Yahweh's heart is. What did he say to us? How do we return to the heart of our Father? That's what this is about. Nobody's trying to get a lot of money and get a lot of influence and make a lot of waves and ripples, as it were. We're just trying to say, we're sick of the lies, we're sick of the distortions, we're sick of the curse that Yahweh said he'd impose upon us. And, this description here in these first 5 verses of Pershah Yachov, Ekev, Jacob, sound pretty good. Yahweh will love you, bless you, and multiply you. Yeah, but what about all the tribulation? Keep your mind on the ball, on the Yahweh, on his Brit. That's what he said. Shamar the Brit, Shamar Yahuwah Eloheka. Yeah, but what about the tribulation? What about the Antichrist? What about the devil? It's not what he said, is it? Perhaps you will say in your heart, but the nations are more numerous. And that word numerous can mean in number or in stature or in wealth or in powerful military. Do not fear them. Remember what Yahweh did to Pharaoh in Egypt and to Sennacherib, the Assyrian. And we could have a list. Memorial Day, just remember. Okay, that's the challenge of our entire life right here. You could say the picture in the Mishkan pattern of Samak Ayin Pei does follow on the heels of Chet Tet Yod, Kaf Lamed, and Mem Nun. Chet Tet Yod standing at the gate of choose life, the big white fence. Okay, choose life or death. I choose life. Well, then quit worrying about the devil and the tribulation. Choose life. Okay, what about life? Okay, now that we have your attention, choose life. What did he say? Well, what he said was, let there be light. No, that's not what he said. He never said, let there be light. What he said was, Yahi or Yahaya, Awara. Hebrew. He wasn't speaking English, Greek, or Latin, or any other language. That's what he said. So now what does that mean? What does it mean, and what do I do with it? So what did he say is the barbecue grill, is the lines of script, the Kaf and Lamed. The authority is imbued or embedded, or just it's within the words themselves. So then the laver, like this deep water, wherein is made out of the bronze mirrors of the women. So you could picture, it's all just pictures. This bowl, this chalice, this deep dish of water that you can see a reflection down in there somehow, that's mirrored back to you as you contemplate his words. So where's the advantage in studying Hebrew? Because that's where the life is. The life is in the Hebrew words. As soon as you change them and distort them and tweak them, you got a genetically modified. Question is whether it's even still an organism. It's not organic and there's no life. The tree bearing fruit whose seed is within itself. That's what he made in the garden. A tree is to bear fruit whose seed is within itself. So when they, our friendly scientists, give us fruits without seeds, they're missing life. It's just gone. I mean, you could still eat it and enjoy the taste of it and have something in your stomach, but it's not the same thing. They've destroyed the life. And so when they inject certain things into you that are intentionally designed to bond with and modify your own natural DNA, there's no life. They're taking away life. We're supposed to choose life. What does that mean? But then, given that we've chosen life, read the instructions and take them to heart to ponder and contemplate and involve ourselves like a pregnant mother, the Psalmic pay is the doing of it. Bear the fruit. Look at the fruit. Consider what's going on, and then talk to him, talk to each other, and in the fellowship, another generation, because as you know, we got these blackberries here in Oregon. Man, there's just tens of millions of them. And they bear a seed head, a fruit head with seeds in every one of them, and the birds eat them and redrop them. And the next generation is just, they proliferate like crazy. So the seed is planted for the next generation. It's all about reproductive offspring. And yet, the thing that they're trying to do, look up a little matter called eugenics, E-U-G-E-N, Genesis, generator, genetics, eugenics, ICS. What is that about? For quite a few years, certain individuals, Gates, has been trying to kill off or eradicate certain races from the face of the earth in certain continents. Why would they do that? Why would they sterilize millions of people under the guise of giving them medicine and doctoring and food? Why would they do that? The blessing that Yahuwah promises is fertility and removal of illness and malady, and yet the people that we have as supposedly scientists are intentionally doing the opposite. Doesn't that tell you what side they're on? So we have a choice. Do we trust Yahweh? Do we look at his words? Or do we go for the industry that our governments impose upon us? A couple verses later, verse 18. So remember what Yahweh did to Egypt? I believe that that's what's in front of us today. So in reading this isn't just a history lesson, but this is you might say, walk with your back to the future. Back to the Future was the name of a movie. But if we have our back to the future, because we are looking at the past, we're reading these stories, you will remember what Yahweh did to Pharaoh. That's why we keep the recognition of Pesach every year, to remember what Yahuwah did to the Egyptians. The great, verse 19, the great tests, though that word test is nun somic. Here it's mem somic, but mem and nun are these two letters that can be transposed pretty similarly most of the time, just like Kaf and Lamed and Aleph and Tav. The great test that your eyes saw, the signs, the wonders, the strong hand, the outstretched arm with which Yahuwah, your Elohim, took you out. And so shall Yahuwah, your Elohim, do to all the peoples before whom you fear. That's an ongoing promise, which is just as valid and real right now as it ever was. Verse 20, also the hornet swarm will Yahuwah your Elohim send among them until the survivors and hidden ones perish before you. You shall not be broken before them. That's lo ta Tourette's, ayin resh zadi. That's like the Tourette syndrome where people in their mouth, their voices come out all broken. That's the word in Hebrew, Tourette's. Do not Tourette's before them. For Yahuwah your Elohim is among you a great and awesome El Gadol Ve'Norah. Gadol Ve'Norah, or Unorah. This would be Ve. Gadol Ve'Norah. Okay, so if we have any fear or show any disturbance at the presence of the stormtroopers, the Gestapo, the CP3, the cops, the ATF, whoever any particular entity might come in, the Vikings, the Huns, if we show them any regard, it's because we're not showing Yahuwah regard. So the challenge is to conduct our own hearts with yirah, with honor, reverence, and fear of Yahweh. The word yirah, interestingly enough, is the same word that means to be very afraid or terrified, but it's also to give honor and reverence. This is our challenge. But Yahuwah will send the hornet swarm among them. So the hornet swarm technically is like Yahuwah's secret agents. I found an extinct wasp nest in the house I was just working on. That thing was like a condo project. Layer after layer over the years, they'd built another layer, and that was probably 3 feet wide and a foot deep and another 1.5 feet wide. Tens of thousands. Somebody had killed them off a year ago or so. But man, if somebody had just opened that piece of wood up and found that thing, it would have been trouble for the neighborhood. Gosh. But Yahweh says, listen, even those things you hate, I'll use them on your behalf. They're on our side. The hornet swarm is our secret weapon that Yahweh uses for our sake. A different way to think. What I'm saying is that I could look at hornets and say, no, they're my enemy. It's like, no, wait a minute. They're the enemy of my enemy, according to this verse. And he says that a couple other places. Verse 22, Yahuwah your Elohim will thrust these nations from before you little by little. He'll go before you, confound them, verse 23, confound them with great confusion until their destruction. So that means all these people that are standing up against the people of Yahuwah right now, this is their doom. Everyone who opposes the great reconfederation of the 12 tribes of Israel, which is in front of us, it hasn't happened yet. This is what's before them, not only the hornet swarm, but he will confound them with great confusion until their destruction. Don't be afraid. Yahuwah Eloheinu, our Elohim, has got this if we got him. Our job is to hold on to what he said. Verse 24, he will deliver their kings into your hand, and you shall cause their name to perish from under the heaven. No man will stand up against you until you have destroyed them. Verse 25, now this is what we have to do. The carved images of their gods you shall burn in the fire. You shall not covet and take it for yourself, the silver and the gold that's on them, lest it's a trap, lest you be ensnared by it, for it's an abomination of Yahuwah your Elohim. And you shall not bring an abomination into your home and become banned like it, or become an abomination. You shall utterly loathe it, and you shall surely abominate it, which is to have a feeling of anathema, of reproach, reprehensible, for it is banned. Well, that's what we're supposed to do. So the whole idea of some people coming to these matters of the Torah, of Hebrew, of the name Yahweh, and say, okay, what are we supposed to do? How do you do the Torah? What does it mean to do the Torah? Right here. Destroy the carved images of the fake gods of the people and cultures that Yahuwah our Elohim allowed to persist for all these years, which are just not true. Therefore, if Christmas and Easter are actually amalgamated heathen festivities, which are not of Yahuwah, our job is to annihilate, to destroy the vestiges of those holidays. They're not of Yahuwah. They're not the truth. Yeah, but they've got sparkly silver and gold on them. He said, don't even have a desire for them. So it's not that we don't appreciate, gee, it was fun when we were kids. It was fun back when we were blind and ignorant. It used to be fun when we were lame, laid up in a wheelchair, when people would push us around in the wheelchair. Gee, that was a lot of fun, wasn't it? Yeah, but what if Yahweh heals you so you're out of the wheelchair? Yo, it was so much fun. I'm going to sit back in the wheelchair and let my friends and family push me around in it. Boy, that was a lot of fun. Really? Is that what we're going to do? Or do you so loathe the crippling of the overlord culture that Yahuwah imposed for nearly 3,000 years upon his people, that once we get out of the wheelchair and once we can take off the blinders that they had on our eyes, throw those things away. I'm not going to wear the blinders just because it was fun to have people lead me by the hand, because I didn't, especially to use the same analogy, they made us blind, and so they had people lead us in our blindness, but they would lead us to the pitfall of stumbling while we were in our blindness. And one of the mishpat that Yahweh says is when they were speaking out the blessings and the curses on Mount Gerizim and Ebal was, cursed is the man who will put a stumbling block in front of the blind. That's what our culture has been doing to us for the last 3,000 years, since the days of David, 2,000 years since Rome was empowered. What will it take for us to shake off the abominations of our overlords and just have the Most High, Yahuwah, Elyon? That's it. That's all we need. Learning Hebrew is a way of shoving off so that we can walk in the way of his blessing. Chapter 8 of Deuteronomy, the entire commandment that I command you today, you shall observe to perform. Again, English words, but to observe is shomer. You have to listen, that's shema. To observe is shomer. And then to perform is asa, ayin shin hey. So that, okay, here's an if-then situation. You shema, shomer, and asa, or asha, or oseh. That ayin shin hey can be pronounced either of those three ways. So that, here's the if-then, you may live and increase and come and possess the land that Yahweh swore to your forefathers. There's the remedy. Verse 2, you shall remember the entire road on which Yahweh your Elohim led you these 40 years in the wilderness, as to afflict you, to test you, to know what's in your heart, whether you would observe his commandments or not. He afflicted you and let you feel hunger, and then he fed you the manna that you didn't know, nor did your forefathers know, in order to make you know that not by bread alone does man live, rather by everything that emanates from the mouth of Elohim does man live. So that's Deuteronomy 8:3. And Yeshua quoted this verse, validating its regard. Not by bread alone does man live. rather by everything that emanates from the mouth of Elohim, Hebrew words of Torah. So if somebody doesn't want to read the Hebrew words of Torah, jumping ahead, take care lest you forget. That's what happens when you don't read the Hebrew words of the Torah. You forget Yahweh your Elohim by not observing his commands, his ordinances, his decrees, which I command you today, lest you eat and be satisfied, you build good houses and settle. Your sheep and your cattle and your goats increase, and you increase silver and gold for yourselves, and everything you have will increase. And your heart will become haughty, and you will forget Yahweh your Elohim, who took you out of the land of Egypt from the house of slavery, and everything falls apart. And you go down to the last verse of chapter 8. So you will perish because you will not have hearkened, listened, Shema, to the Kol Yahweh Eloheka, to the voice of Yahweh your Elohim. This is the tipping of the scales. This is the antidote. This is the recovering. Because you do not listen to the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, you take on other Elohim, and you think his voice was done away with. And because you don't Shema, everything fails and your enemies overwhelm you. But when we do the opposite, when we go back to the voice, the call of Yahuwah, our Elohim, our Eloheka, and we Shema the call, we hear the voice, and we do what he said and guard, Shamar, which is to say, give it a value to observe and keep it clean. Adam was told to Shamar the garden, watch, keep, guard, rake the leaves off the path. What was that? Remove the dregs is one of the means it says. One that says, then you will remember, verse 18, that it is he who gives you strength to make wealth in order to establish his covenant that he swore to your forefathers as this day. Back up, end of verse 16. In order to do good, in order to test you, to do good for you in your end. And that word end is achrit, which is the future, which is us here. I could sit there and say, going back to the word for Yachov and Achar, this is the now. This is the time that he promised to restore everything if we would simply take this occasion to regard his voice and do what he said. So what did he say? Okay, we're at the 1 hour. We have to take a break. We'll open up the second part by saying, does anything you guys want to say? But go ahead, Kurt.